welcome to the family, son.
Stephen King once wrote that nightmares exist outside of logic, and there's little fun to be had in explanations. They're antithetical to the poetry of fear. In a horror story, the victim keeps asking why, but there can be no explanation, and there shouldn't be one. The unanswered mystery is what stays with us the longest, and it's what we'll remember in the end. My channel's called Dad Quest, and I've been here a year. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Since it's the 1 year anniversary of the first video I made on this platform, I thought I'd go back and revisit that game. Of course it's Alan Wake, but this time we'll be looking at the DLC chapters, the signal and the writer. And I think the best place to start is with the spoiler warning for the end of the first game. And with that out of the way, let's go. At the end of Alan Wake, he uses the clicker to destroy the dark version of Barbara Jagger, allowing his wife Alice to leave the dark place, but in return for her safety, he must stay trapped under the lake, leaving us with one of the most memorable lines in any horror game.
It's not a lake, it's an ocean.
And it's after this that the signal picks up. We find Alan stood in the street in the dark place version of Bright Falls. Reliving some of the beats from the early part of the first game, Alan enters the diner, only it's different. Nothing's quite right.
Welcome to the diner.
And he's very confused. Making his way to the bathroom, he gets a message from Thomas Zane. He warns him not to travel deeper and provides Alan with a flashlight and a gun. Once he leaves the bathroom, Alan feels a shift and finds the diner empty, except for some TVs with his face on it.
Come night. The diner had become deserted. Then the door was smashed off its hinges and Wake had to fight for his life.
He's rambling, he's telling a story. Is his subconscious writing the events around him? Because much like the manuscript pages from the first game, the words become truth, leaving Alan to fight his way out of the diner and through some woods before reaching a house where he finds a manuscript page and a phone, allowing him to talk directly to Thomas Zane. The phone's GPS signal is working, and after telling him once more to stop traveling deeper, Thomas Zane tells Alan to follow the signal.
Listen, I can help you, but you're drifting deeper. I can't reach you. You must come to me. I can't maintain the connection. Use the words. Follow the signal.
Now that we have some idea of direction, Alan begins to explore the town. But this isn't the Bright Falls that we know from the game. The roads are all ripped up and everything seems to have a strange dreamlike quality to it. And whilst we follow the signal through the town, we relive memories from the first game, fight off a huge amount of taken people, objects and ravens, all whilst being told by Thomas Zane that we're going too deep. Zane leaves Alan another manuscript page, and one of the words that appears is friend. When Alan shines his torch on it, Barry Wheeler, his agent, appears. Alan's best friend. Alan's only friend. And even though he can't be real, he's most welcome company.
You're not real.
Well, no shit. What gave me away? What, the see-through thing? I'm a figment of your imagination.
And so the two of them head off together through the woods towards the sawmill. Alan has to fight off ever-increasing numbers of taken while the world seems to be getting stranger around him, as words from an unknown manuscript flood the land and he's attacked by copies of his last Alex Casey book, The Sudden Stop. Again, a manic version of Alan appears on a TV screen, narrating what's about to happen in the story as the world shifts around him again.
Push themselves up to the ground, flickering madly and spitting sparks. In the shadows, Wake saw far too many figures advancing eagerly, already tasting the kill.
Before finally making his way to the sawmill, and after a few genuinely fun bits of combat, Alan finds himself climbing to the roof of the sawmill and jumping in, where he finds himself in a memory with his wife Alice as she takes press photos for his final book, The Sudden Stop. And as he carries on further into this story, he finds himself back in his New York apartment where Thomas Zane and the television version of himself are waiting.
Wait, lost. He knew. He knew! He couldn't hold on. He knew there was no way out. Oh!
Thomas Zane reaffirms what we already know, that it's not the dark place that's been attacking Alan, it's his own mind. And so Alan fights the televisual representation of this nightmare, and once he's defeated it, the nightmare version of Alan appears on the shattered screen and screams. Alan clutches his head and falls to the ground, and then wakes up in Dr. Harkman's office. Alan pulls away from the Doctor and the camera pulls away from us, leading us to see that the nightmare is still going on. This is just another story.
Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? Lodge. No. Hartman.
And that is the end of the signal. The next DLC chapter, The Writer, picks up exactly where we left off, in Dr. Hartman's lodge. Much like in the base game, he's telling Alan that he's made everything up, but this time, his face keeps morphing into that of Barry. He tells Alan that he's delusional, that he knows reality works differently here, and before we know it, we're transported to a different location. But he's trapped on the other side of a gate from Barry. He uses a lamp on a pole to find an alternative path, picking up a flashlight and a gun along the way. And after making his way through a strange maze full of paintings and statues, he's able to meet up with Barry again.
Nice job, Al! So, you really are nuts, huh? Let's face it, we always knew this was coming.
So with his best friend in tow, he forges forward and finds himself in a nightmarish version of the Old Gods of Asgard concert fight from the first game. Using everything available to him, including fireworks, he fights off the Taken and is able to enter the lodge, where he once again meets up with Thomas Zane. He tells Alan that he's trapped in a dream and that he must reach the cabin to wake himself up. He gives him another manuscript page and tells him to use the words because they have power in a place like this. Taking Zane's advice, Alan uses the words to clear himself a path. Seeing a lighthouse in the distance, he has something to head towards. And Zane once again reaffirms that we're fighting our own mind.
You are facing yourself, the parts of your mind that are hard to control. This is not a fight anyone else can win for you.
And it's very clear that Alan is struggling with his mind, as the world is very surreal and completely disjointed from reality. But as this part of his mind is still capable of rational thought, there's still hope for him and he forges forward. Alan makes his way across a series of disjointed platforms and objects before once again reaching solid ground. He has to fight off another series of Taken before making his way into some tunnels, and once he finally makes his way through these tunnels, the world becomes even more surreal. Has he gone deeper inside his mind? The world's twisting and turning around him. He relives the memory of diving into the lake. Deeper and deeper he goes before finding an elevator that takes him back to Bright Falls, where he emerges at Carl Stuckey's garage. And after fighting off even more Taken, he re-establishes the power line so he can make himself a bridge. And once again we become reacquainted with Thomas Zane. He explicitly states to Alan that we're the part of his brain that is capable of rational thought, leading Alan to question his own existence and if he's real.
Are you telling me I'm not real?
You're as real as anything else in this place.
And so he continues his journey, fighting his way across a massive bridge before making it to the cliffs below the lighthouse, where he finds himself fighting even more Taken townsfolk and ravens before finally entering a door. He somehow found himself back at the lodge, but this time he sees a bizarre version of himself being interviewed by Hartman, and this version of him appears to be agreeing with the Doctor. Is this the part of Alan's mind that wants to give in? Hartman goes on to tell Alan that he's got a message from his wife Alice, and this is how it plays out.
All I ever wanted was to help you, Alan. I ate all the shit you handed out and tried to understand your pathetic, wealthy white male drama. The only thing that keeps me from killing myself is the hope that I'll never see you again!
But rather than letting this destroy him, he uses it to reinvigorate himself and pushes forward.
It was nonsense. I knew I had saved her. I'd succeeded in that. And that was all that mattered. What I heard in there wasn't the truth. It was just another toxic mirage. It cut deep, but that made me all the more determined to force myself to snap out of it. I didn't want to be that guy anymore. I had to make myself see the light.
He makes his way through a forested area where once again he comes face to face with Thomas Zane. He tells Alan that he must take full control of his mind and reject the fantasies he's created. Alan agrees and says that he can. He's beginning to see what's real and what isn't.
Good. You are aware. The part of you bent on self-destruction is not. But you must be careful. Just because you know the lies for what they are, that doesn't make the danger any less real.
Alan then starts his final journey towards the lighthouse, and as he manically runs towards it, he's protected from the Taken by its spotlight. And once he finally makes it there, he climbs to the top, emerging at Diver's Isle. He's almost there. His friend Barry reappears and tells him if he's got to be logical, that means letting go of all of his fantasies, including him.
Fine, you're abandoned.
Bye.
And just like that, Barry vanishes. But shortly after, he reappears and tells Alan there's no way he's getting into that cabin unless he goes through him. And so now we've reached the final encounter. Alan has to fight his best friend. He of course comes out victorious and enters the cabin, where he finds the other version of himself on the floor having a nightmare. He reaches out and touches his shoulder, and his mind becomes clear again. Knowing that there's only one way out of the dark place, Alan sits down to write his next book, The Return.
But here I was, the yet unwritten future waiting to unfold before me. A sequel to Departure. My name is Alan Wake, and I'm a writer.
And that's the end of The Writer. I'm really glad that I got around to playing these before the second game comes out. It's added an extra bit of flavour to the things that I have seen for the second game, and has given me a few theories about what's going on, but I'll perhaps save those for another video. All that's left to say is thank you so much to everyone that's watched any of my videos over the last year, anyone that's given me a like or left a comment. You've made all of this worth it for me. I'm being completely honest when I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. So please like and subscribe, leave me a comment, share with your friends, and I'll see you on the next video.